you've been playing in the new league Dawn of the Hunt, then you're probably just as excited about the addition of Spectres and companions to the game as most other people were, considering this was one of the most hype sale points of the game when it was initially released, and sadly it wasn't able to come out when early access first started. But we finally have Spectres. And that begs the question, what are the best Spectres? And I don't think that we're necessarily at the point where we can say that, although the ones running around me right now are definitely up for debate. But if you saw Trudy Toru's most recent video where they actually talked about unique interactions between particular monster types, there's a lot left for us to explore. So rather than just bore you with these Veilguard in front of you, let me show you the example that Trudy brought up, because I think it's a really good example that highlights what we're talking about here, or it might be one of the more exciting versions of it. I'll show you a version that I found that's completely garbage, and then I'll beg a question of you to maybe help us out in finding out what these particular combinations are. What we're going to be looking at is something called the Drudge Osiodon and a Subjugator, specifically a Lost Men Subjugator. So this Lost Men Subjugator might remind you of some kind of Mad Max Fury Road meets Carnival, because he's got this cool little whip in his hand. But if you just send this guy into battle, he doesn't do anything altogether that impressive. If I just send him off to go fight these random hyena, in fact, he won't really do anything at all. He kind of just punches them, he slaps them, he moves around a whole bunch, he's smacking them with their mace. Nothing altogether that impressive, but when we add on another Spectre that looks a lot more impressive, maybe it tells a different tale. Now the Drudge Osiodon is a massive dude, and probably was one of the first ones that I looked at and went oh, big man must be good, right? They have an okay stat range as far as what their base can do. They do a modeling amount of damage, but obviously there's no support gems here. And they themselves are actually a very slow moving and very unimpressive monster as well. So if I could go find some more mobs, we'll send them up at them. And while they're big, and they do an okay cleave attack and an okay base attack, there's nothing really to write home about. But if I were to actually take out my Subjugator, I were to run away here and get my guy to respawn, you'll notice that when I send them off to do battle, the Subjugator will enrage the Osiodon, which will actually vastly increase how much damage the Osiodon does, as well as vastly increase the amount of attack speed it has. And not only that, it changes its AI completely. It goes from doing these basic attacks and these swipe attacks to a 1-2 punch, where it goes boom boom and then a big slam, giving it AoE. So this is actually very interesting, right? Some of these Spectres have AI from their base monster types where they're meant to interact with one another in meaningful ways. And in this interaction, the Osiodon becomes an actually pretty decent AoE clearing enabled enemy. The Subjugator will keep it buffed up, and it'll start doing, again, much more damage, attacking much faster, and getting new attack style. So it begs the question, what other combinations are there in this game? And I found one for you, and I thought it was going to be immediately very interesting. And sadly, all it does is basically kill itself over and over and over again. This is a Blood Priest. A Blood Priest looks pretty cool. They're the Act 3 Val Blood Priest, and they have a really interesting interaction with another monster type in the game, and that's called a Blood Zealot. Now, interestingly enough, there's actually two different types of Blood Zealots, and they cost two different amounts of spirit. The big difference here is that the lower cost one attacks with 2 daggers and has higher DPS, whereas the more expensive one attacks with a spear and is tankier. But it kind of doesn't matter which one of them I bring out to the battlefield. If I summon any amount of these guys, you'll notice something interesting that my Blood Priest starts doing. He just walks around and starts killing them. And this is because he has a particular AI decision that he makes in-game based off of his stat card. The PoE2 database has kind of become this half unwritten Bible as far as Spectres are concerned, because you can go look up the monsters in the game, and not only can you see their base stats and set them to a particular level, but you can go look up all of the various skills that those monsters do. Typically, they'll have some kind of attack, and a lot of them will then have secondary abilities. So the Blood Priest in question has a melee attack, it has these stats on it, it has some Exsanguinate ability, which if you were to actually look in-game, you can at least see these two things here, so you can see the basic attack, you can see the Exsanguinate. Very often though, you don't really get a whole bunch of information. Very often it will just be the basic attack on the in-game stat card. But you'll see that they have a couple different options as well. They have a Blood Priest Detonate Dead. I have not actually seen them use this skill before. They have a Blood Priest Projectile, which I believe I've seen them use before. And then they have this right here. E.g. Blood Priest Sacrifice, triggerable, and it has an action range. Not only that, they have a summon elemental right above me here. They never summoned this elemental, because if you remember when the developers were explaining it, they basically had to go through every single monster and create a Spectre stat card for them. which would allow them to use certain abilities and not use certain other abilities. The really big one that comes to people's mind is the River Hag that spawns the little orb that if you stand on top of it for long enough just kills you. Oddly enough, if you were to summon one yourself, she doesn't do that because it would probably be too strong. It'd be hilarious if you could just go in with one River Hag and kill Arbiter, right? That would probably be a little bit broken. But these particular monster-specific interactions or examples are things that are really hard to see on paper. You don't quite know what they're doing until you kind of put them onto the battlefield altogether. Now, I've gone and tested this quite extensively. The base stats of the priest doesn't change. The stats of the other minions around him doesn't change. I was thinking it might be some kind of like aura or buff that it gets. It appears that as a monster, this gains either some kind of multiplier or some in-game effect. But as a Spectre, they have deactivated that. But they've left this AI decision here. Now, I haven't tested everything. There might be another monster type that is, for whatever reason, empowered when one of these priests does this to the other zealots around them. Maybe. It just turns out it's hard to test. And as far as I can tell, getting 2 blood priests out and doing it just makes them kill these dudes twice as fast. So I can't quite figure out exactly what this thing is meant to do. Now we could take this one, for example, a Lost Men Zealot. A Lost Men Zealot doesn't even have information here as far as whether or not it has a basic attack or not. But what's interesting is that there is another monster out here that does have a benefit. You can summon yourself a little Rib Rattle. And the Rib Rattle will actually buff the Lost Men Zealot if he hangs around for long enough. Hold on. They're both blind, I'm pretty sure, so it's hard for them to see. There we go, he buffs him. And when you look at it, it overcharges his energy shield. It grants him like another like 1700 energy shield, which is pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. Now, does this work with any of our other minions? Let's take a look. We'll take out a Veil Guard here. We'll let Rib Rattle run around with him for a little bit. And we'll just wait and we'll see. You see that he doesn't do anything. So again, this seems to be particularly unique to the Lost Men Zealot and Rib Rattle, where the Rib Rattle will grant him some energy shield. Now the interesting part about that too is that if you get this Rib Rattle from a different area called Freythorn, that Rib Rattle will actually cast one of 3 different curses, and if you get enough of them going, they can each curse individually. Now it might be that Rib Rattle here will actually use their ability on different Lost Men style monsters. Let's see, I actually haven't tested this before. Maybe I can get rid of the Zealot. Hold on. Maybe he doesn't like the subjugators. Maybe he just likes the Zealots. Yeah. So it's kind of a complete crapshoot. Is it just monster families? Is it unique monsters to particular areas? Is it particular combinations of monsters? It's really hard to say. But this is where the community comes in. I'm going to attempt to do my best, and I know that Trudy's been doing a ton of work as well. I know that Gazzy has been looking into stuff, and there are a lot of great people from their communities who are all looking into this stuff. But the more eyes we can get on this, the better, because I'm positive, without question, we have not found the best Spectre yet. And not only that, I'm almost positive that we probably haven't found the best companions yet either. Because remember, you can actually have 2 companions if you spec into it, and it's almost certainly that there are 2 animals out there that engage with one another and give buffs to one another outside of the normal benefits that your companions can grant. So I'm hoping that as we continue to explore this, we find other interesting combinations and that we can finally answer the question like, hey, what are the best Spectres out there? Because as far as just going by their DPS is concerned, sure, I think we have a pretty clear estimate that the Veil Guard is by far one of the best ones that you can get, but I don't even believe that this thing is truly optimized at this point. There is almost certainly some kind of combination where if you put them together, the outcome ends up being greater than the sum of the parts. And I hope that if you're interested, you can let me know down in the comments if you found anything interesting like this, because there's just so many combinations. And we're also not even just talking about monsters from the campaign, right? There are specialty monsters in certain areas, like the specialty delve maps, as well as in the unique maps. I'm pretty sure I found a unique version of one of the ape-type monsters, but this thing was only in that map. So it's just kind of hard to say what is the totality of all of the combinations, right? And it's definitely more work than any one person can do alone. If you're brand new to the channel, you found this interesting, consider subscribing to it. I don't want you to miss out on anything. I promise I don't spam you with anything. I'm just trying to put out quality videos whenever I can manage it. If you did like the video, leave a like on it. Even if you didn't, do it anyways. It's free. It literally costs you nothing. And comment down below. Thank you very much for watching this video. I truly, truly hope that it helped to inspire you in some way, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.